Good evening, friends. Stephen Ben-Nun here with Israeli News Live. And here on our Patreon channel, I wanted to share some information with you I think you might find fascinating. We are getting, of course, more and more intel out of Washington, and this one's coming from a very good friend of mine. And he is saying that the White House is having a very difficult time keeping the lid on this particular story, and that is about alien life forms on the moon. I said, actually, it's an entire alien civilization on the moon. Now, of course, I knew about, we have a base there. The Russians have one. We also know that they have been sending up special trained people to help evacuate some of the elite off the Earth in the near future for things that they anticipate that are coming upon the Earth that's going to cause a lot of havoc. And we're not even talking about the situation right now that we're faced with just this year. We're talking about issues around 2008, things like that. And that's where that we know that we're facing some asteroid type of issues that could be very devastating for the planet between 2008 and, not 2008, but 2028 and 2030. These are some very big issues that are coming up in that type of a situation there. But this whole idea, though, of alien civilizations on the moon, we know this is going to be leaking out before long. And I was told that if you want to get some information on this, search in the Russian language. The Russians are pretty good about leaking this information out to the public. They're not as much held back on it as what we are. But there is concern about, well, what if an alien invasion did happen on the Earth? And yet we keep this all under wraps and nobody never knows. And yet we've always known they've been there for the entire time. So I decided to share some of you what I found. And of course, yes, I did find some interesting information. This documentary here in Russian about aliens on the moon. That's actually what it says there at the beginning of the article there. So let's look at this. And it's in the Russian language. I'll turn the volume down and we'll just kind of go through the subtitles here. Let's listen in. Allow scientists to calculate the distance to the moon in short time. It's talking about a laser that the Russians had saw that was being reflected from the moon back to the Earth and things like that. That was one of the first things. And then it got a little bit more interesting. I don't know why we're not seeing the video on this. For some reason we are not seeing the video, and that doesn't make any sense here. Let me just see if I can't reload it. Yeah, here we go. There we go. So we'll back it up. Need to get the subtitles back working for you guys there, because that is a major ordeal. If you can't get it in English there, you're not going to be able to understand nothing, because unless you speak Russian, I don't speak it. So let me close that out there. All right, here we go. Let's play on. Okay, so let me back up just a little bit here. Okay, but what happened next? Four scientists immediately classified the results of the experiment, officially declared the mirrors disabled the dust on the moon, but in fact the reflection of the mirrors blocked the object of which earlier on the moon. But what in fact happens on the moon by the play of sunlight on a dish, we cannot explain the object. It means that on the moon there is a strange, mysterious life that is not similar to our earthly life, but life, maybe a whole civilization of unusual creatures that do not need oxygen, that have unique aircraft, and the moon has long been as their space bases. Perhaps the arrival and departure of extraterrestrial ships, a person observes the Earth when unusual flashes and pillars of light are recorded, and inside the moon there may be entire cities that are inhabited by creatures unknown to us. If all of this is true, then Soviet cosmonauts and American astronauts really entered into contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, but did not realize the danger in time. Therefore, the last lunar missions, humanity ended the tragedy. Whether Apollo 18, 19, and 20 missions were actually still remains to be guessed, but astronauts Neil Armstrong, astronauts prefer to remain silent about as many as other things and servants. It's the giant balls. They're quoting what they're saying. They're coming. No, it's not. Optical. It can't be. Doubted. Apollo 11, control the flight center with your fingers. What's going on? Describe what you're going to stop there. Here, next to us. Too bright. Light. Can't see anything. Center. In the desert. Something. The control center calls. Apollo 11, the control center calls. Apollo only. Recently, this recording with astronauts' conversations was found in the secret archives on the tape. You can clearly hear that the crew of the spacecraft encountered something inexplicable. Very soon, this tape disappeared, and we were told into more than 700 boxes of video materials and audio recordings of the space expedition missions literally vanished into thin air. I'll kind of pause it there. I'll include the link here for you. But like I said, I'm hearing from DC, they're having a hard time keeping the wraps on this story. They want to bring this this information out there, but there's some people there that don't want it out, and so they're trying to keep it quiet. But who knows? These are the type of things we like to share with you here on our Patreon channel. Some things that may seem completely outlandish, wacko, whatever you want to call it, but it is interesting nonetheless there. You're going to have two different people on this one here. It is in English. You'll be able to hear it without me having to talk. So I'm going to turn microphone off, let them do the talking here as, again, they're talking about space type things. I think in one part here you'll see like something moving slow across the moon and something like almost like a lightning bolt going across there. When I saw the alien aircraft that I saw when I was in Dulce, New Mexico there, it is mega fast. Yes, so that it is true. And my wife literally watched one aircraft go right to the moon. So yeah, pretty crazy things. And I know it sounds nutty, but it's true. Listen in.
I looked at him and I was pretty startled because I'd worked out there several years and never seen anything like this, never heard of anything like this. And I said, "Is this a UFO?" And he's smiling at me and he says, "I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that." What I knew he meant was it was, but he couldn't tell me. So I said, "What are you going to do with this information?" And he said, "Well, we always have to airbrush them out before we sell them to the public."
I was asked to go over to this facility on Langley Air Force Base where the NSA was bringing in the information from the lunar orbiter. And so I packed up some tools. I went over. I went into the facility. A couple of officers took me into this hangar. It was a very large hangar. So they took me into this laboratory. I took a look at the equipment. There was an airman second class in there. I was an airman second class as well. At the time, I didn't know what the real purpose of this darkroom and this operation in this facility was.
He's going to show
I thought
you here.
This was where they were bringing the...
In just a moment, you're going to see almost like the same color as the moon and everything, but you'll notice, you can clearly see as they zoom in, where they have, like, I'll call it airbrush for lack of better words there, but they have taken and they've matched the back of the lunar surface in the photos. But it does match the description of what this man is talking about the way the buildings were. So watch closely for that as we continue on, and then I'll include the links of these videos in the description for you below.
Data in and then releasing the images to the public. They were doing 35 millimeter strips of film at that time, which were then assembled into 18.5 by 11 inch mosaics, they were called. There was a digital signature and a grayscale on every 35 millimeter strip. And those strips were from successive passes around the moon. So he was showing me how all this worked, and we walked over to one side of the lab, and he said, "By the way, we've discovered a base on the back side of the moon." And at that point, I became frightened, and I was a little terrified, thinking to myself that if anybody walks in the room now, I know we're in jeopardy, we're in trouble, because he shouldn't be giving me this information. And then he pulled out one of these mosaics and showed this base, which had geometric shapes. There were towers, there were spherical
You've seen the first one there when it
there
popped
were very
up there, but it's
tall
going to show some more.
towers and things that looked somewhat like radar dishes, but they were large structures. If I compare it to what I'm seeing now, because I do have photographs that have artifacts in them that are similar to what I saw, They're massive. Some of the structures are, half a mile.
There you go. See it there? Now you can see now the
So they're
straight
huge
lines
structures.
in there as they go up, and they airbrush it out.
Some
so
of
to
the
speak,
some of the buildings
but match the
seem to
background
have,
colors.
very reflective surfaces on them. A couple of structures that I saw reminded me of cooling towers at power generating plants. They had that sort of a shape. Some of them were just very, very straight and tall with a flat top. Some of them were round. Some of them looked like a Quonset hut, with a domed kind.
We'll pause it there. Like I said, I'll include that in the description below there. And some really crazy things going on, friends. And I'm going to be also doing a video update on asteroids and meteorites. We are expected to have a storm this summer, but it's nothing, no planet killers, nothing like that. They do anticipate injuries from this storm, not because of the meteorites that are hitting the Earth, though, but because of the falling debris, because we're going to get a lot of satellites that are going to be hit or anticipated to be hit. Anyway, that's the probabilities, and I'll be going into that along with what they are looking at that are very devastating. But we're still looking around 2028 on those, and I'll share that information with you in another broadcast. Thank you for your support of this channel. We appreciate you tremendously. And like I said, we're going to have a marathon of videos this week to share with you. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live.